Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about 7 key ways to know if the dismissive avoidant attachment style is ready for love. So this is actually a question I got from inside of our school, asking to do a series on how to tell which attachment styles, if they are ready for love based on the person of that attachment style. So I'm going to go through and do a series about this. I'm going to start off with the DA. And one of the first things that I want you to know that is the single most important feature that I have found about whether relationships work or not is if the person is willing to do the work. And I've seen people who are dismissive avoidant show up in couples work, in my office, in the school, in different places, who have extremely successful relationships and who become very secure over time. But if somebody's not willing to do the work, you can know right there that that's going to be the number one differentiating factor, because then all of the challenges within their attachment style, all of the programs, it might be, self-sabotaging relationships or pushing people away or, trying to stonewall people out to stay safe. All of these programs, you can basically guarantee that they're going to stay alive. Now, we have neuroplasticity, we have neurogenesis, we can create new neural networks, we can fire and wire new neural patterns. We can have old patterns atrophy over time. But if we're not putting in the conscious effort to reprogram the subconscious components of the things that might sabotage relationships or cause pain, then you can pretty much know that the relationship's going to stay challenging. The patterns that you don't like, you can pretty much see are going to stay the same. So it's really important to start understanding, like, number one, is somebody able and willing to do the work, okay? Can you introduce them to attachment styles? Can you talk about new ways of communicating? Can you ask for your needs to be met? And do they show up and do they put in effort? And if they do this, then this is a great reason to try to work through things in the relationship, because you'll get to learn and grow as you learn to communicate differently. And if the other person's showing up, even if they're imperfect, because we all will be, if there's momentum and movement and change, and that change is being repeated in a way that's getting hardwired, then this is very promising. But if somebody's resistant, they blame, they're not willing to look at themselves, then that's when we run into problems. So that's number one, single most important thing by far. They are willing to work for it, okay? Also, before I dive into the other 6, we are still doing a community sale to support our community right now during these uncertain times. We have it up on our website. There's a coupon code. It's with you, all one word. So if you want to become a member and join all these new exciting things that we're expanding into, I think we have close to 30 courses now that are pre-recorded. And then we have 75, maybe close to 80 pre-recorded webinars, each an hour and a half, on all these different topics. So there's a tremendous amount of resources. We have an amazing community of people online who are super supportive to each other, who show up. We have, I get to answer your questions in the live webinars 3 times a week. We keep recording new webinars. So there's a tremendous amount of tools and resources and things for reprogramming. Our courses that are coming out this month are number 1 on being able to release resentment and create forgiveness at the subconscious level. And number 2, what a secure attachment relationship looks like in each of the 6 stages, so that you can learn to model after these things and understand the inner workings of somebody who presents as secure. And then our next month's courses are on conscious parenting and what's the other one? Geez, I release so many courses and do so many webinars. I start getting them mixed up of like what's coming out when, and subconscious reprogramming. So I give you a whole blueprint of how your subconscious mind works. 20 different reprogramming tools exist within that course at the belief level, the behavior level, the thought level, that will all impact your emotional patterns. And there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up in there too. So we have number 1. Number 2, dismissive avoidance will try to be vulnerable, okay? Even if they are imperfect at it. And I've seen so many sweet, sweet dismissive avoidance over the years they're really trying to be vulnerable. And I've worked with them, one-to-one, and they'll say, I communicated a need, and like, it'll be a really teeny tiny need, and it'll be, not too vulnerable by maybe like a securely attached person's point of view to communicate. But for them, this is like heavy lifting. It can be really scary for them to be vulnerable, to open up, to share feelings. And so, if you see that you're with a dismissive avoidant and you see that they are doing the work and you see them putting in the effort with vulnerability and communication and all these different pieces, it's really good to positively reinforce that, because it makes them feel safe. It makes them feel like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. A lot of dismissive avoidance, from what I've seen, They'll try to do the work and then they kind of feel really confused. Like, am I doing it right? And they really appreciate having lots of feedback around that. Okay. Number 3, you'll see that they'll try to meet your needs. Okay. Dismissive avoidants really want clarity when you express needs. I can't stress this enough. If you say, like, I need more love in the relationship, I can tell you right now, they're going to feel confused. They're going to be like, I feel like I love you. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And then they just shut down a lot of those times. And so it's our responsibility as people, irrespective of a dismissive, avoidant, securely attached person, whoever we're interacting with in any kind of relationship, it's our job to communicate our needs and to do so clearly and directly and with intentions, being hopeful and optimistic that somebody will meet them, but not with expectations, not with attachments, not thinking like, oh, if this person doesn't meet the need, then, I can't deal with them. Knowing that people are going to do their best, seeing your own needs through, communicating frequently, reminding people if they forget. And as long as you're seeing momentum there, this is a really good sign. You might see that the dismissive avoidant does a good job for a little bit, then they forget. Good, go remind them. It's up to us to feel really empowered. That's part of becoming secure, is feeling really empowered. Like, oh, if I have a need and the person's not meeting it, fine, I can meet it myself. I can have healthy interdependence where I rely on both myself and others. And if it's important for me to get that need met from that person, from the relationship, good, I'm going to circle back around and I'm going to continue to communicate. Now, if you see that somebody never meets the need and they don't show up, then that's a sign that the person is not ready for love, ready for a deeper relationship, ready to do the work and thrive, right? So then in that case, you might have to consider leaving the relationship. But if we're seeing that somebody does a good job and then they forget a little bit and then you remind them they do a good job again and then they forget, sometimes you'll see in the nature of relationships that we can take 5 steps forward and then a step or 2 back and then a few more steps forward, and it goes like this a little bit, right? So and it's common too, just on a side note here overall, that dismissive avoidants can have feelings for somebody in a relationship, and they can love and they can feel attraction and romance and chemistry towards somebody, but they might not be ready to do the work. And in those cases, like, it's a tough spot, right? Because you can know somebody cares, but if they're not willing to put in the work, you can guarantee that what you're getting in the relationship now is probably what you're going to get long term. And you have to ask yourself that question: am I happy with this right now? Am I okay with this standard of relationship? But if you see somebody changing and pushing and working and trying, then you know that transformation is happening. You know that there's growth to do together. And a great rule is don't date somebody's potential. Like, imagine, I think there's a quote from Maya Angelou, and she says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And that's really important. If you see the person changing, great. If you see the person being stagnant, refusing, being resistant, that's important feedback too. Okay. So number 4, they will actively listen and try to understand your point. This is actually a really big one I see when dismissive avoidants are trying to change. They are making space. Like, dismissive avoidants tend to be fact gatherers. They like to gather information, and sometimes gathering that information and trying to understand helps them feel a little bit safer and helps them feel like, okay, I kind of know which direction. And so one of the very first early stage things you'll see if a dismissive avoidant is really ready for love, really ready to be in a healthy relationship, is that, and I'm not saying that they have all the tools, I'm saying that they're ready to enter into, they want this, they care to value a romantic partnership, or maybe it's the type of friendship, or maybe it's a rekindling a family relationship. But you'll see that they will actively listen, because this is them trying to gather so they can then process and then make decisions and have new behaviors. And so you'll see that they won't make your feelings wrong. They might set a boundary sometimes and say, like, hey, can you communicate to me more nicely? Or they might withdraw sometimes if the communication is not positive, it's very critical or harsh from the other person's end. But what you'll see when somebody's really trying, who's a DA, is you'll see that they try to be present, they try to gather all the information. You can see, like, the wheels are turning. They try to understand your point of view. And this is a really important thing for relationships overall. Number 5, there will be an element of consistency to their behavior of change. So it's not going to be completely consistent. They are going to falter. They're going to make mistakes, just like anybody else going through change and transformation. You're going to see that they have moments where they forget things. There's drawbacks. There's pitfalls that they fall, these things take place. But one thing you'll see as an underlying theme is that they still show up and try again. And that is a really promising sign from a dismissive avoidant. Okay. Number 6, you'll see that they don't hold grudges for you when you're working on something together. They're not putting you in a box like, oh, you made one mistake once, how dare you? Or they're not thinking in these absolutes. And that's a really important signpost of somebody really willing to stick it out, really willing to work through challenges, really willing to dive into a relationship and find a way to evolve together, is that they're not putting you in a box of the past. That's an act of self-sabotage to a certain degree. If we have two people coming together, relating to each other, and one of them is like, oh, you're that same person from the past, and we're always putting that person back in the box of the past again, we actually co-create a cycle where we are stunting their growth because we're preventing them from evolving. We're not seeing them and the progress and validating and helping reinforce through emotion, which is part of how the subconscious is programmed. We're keeping them in this, we're not keeping them in this old space. We're putting them into this new space and reinforcing changes and encouraging each other and uplifting. And you'll see that when a DA is changing, when they're ready to work on the relationship, they don't put somebody in the box of the past any longer, or they really put an end to it overall. And last but not least, they start to communicate their own needs, and they work to express more vulnerably and clearly with their own needs. And this is a really beautiful sign. When you have a dismissive avoidant who's coming to the table and saying what they need, it's a very, very powerful signpost. This is one of the later things that you'll see as the dismissive avoidant is really becoming secure, because it's one of the most vulnerable things that they can do, and it feels confusing for them, and they're not used to interdependence. They're used to independence. So this is a huge step towards transformation as well. So I will do a series with other videos around other attachment styles also. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for being here, for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you're getting a lot of value. And I will see you in the next video.